Okay, so I got a couple more videos that I want to show. Um, the first one is with the CEO, Godfrey. He's with Swift. He's a former CEO of Swift. And in the middle, you're going to see Brad Garlinghouse. And then you have to the very right a commentator, I guess. She's interviewing both of them, asking them questions. Um, and Godfrey, he is continuously talking about APIs, their technology, and how they're gonna eventually make payments instant. And like I've said before, the CTO of Ripple, David Schwartz, um, the cryptographer for this digital asset, he has a patent on digital technology from back in the 1980s. Swift is old and antiquated, um, and I don't foresee them catching up to Ripple's technology. David Schwartz has a patent, again a patent from the late 1980s. That's over 20 years of I guess knowledge and experience that he has over Swift. I don't have a lot of knowledge on what's going on with Swift and what they're doing, but from their transactions today being so slow, I don't foresee them having the technology that Ripple has. It has a technology that allows on-demand liquidity. It prevents banks from pre-funding, which, in my opinion, pre-funding um, is not secure, it's not safe, and it leaves customers vulnerable. In my opinion, it's a deception on the bank's part. They don't give customers enough information on pre-funding, and they wait 3 to 5 business days. They pre-fund you the money, and you don't even know that you're being pre-funded the money. All you know is that you cashed a check, and 3 to 5 business days it cleared, and they're not going to tell you, you know, 4 months down the road, they'll tell you. They're going to tell you that the money wasn't no good, and then they're going to take the money back from you. And there's nothing you can do about it. Banks have all the money. But in this segment, I like how this thing goes down because Brad Garlinghouse, he actually sits here and tells everybody how Swift operates and how slow and antiquated it is, and he gets really detailed in it. And the CEO of Swift, he doesn't try to challenge him. He doesn't tell him he's wrong or anything. He has to kind of sit there and take it. So here I'm gonna play this video for you.
And by the way, it's always good to keep in mind that Swift has never been the bottleneck. We run a telco, a network that transmits the messages in seconds. It's also good to keep in mind that cross-border payments, the $10 that you mentioned, are part of that thing. A Swift message costs 3 cents at the end of the day. So we've always provided a speedy and cheap connectivity. I think what it is about now is to enable the banks to leverage that and really make it work in seconds as well. And I am completely convinced that in a few years you will have the experience over Swift and the banking system to be able to do it end-to-end in a matter of seconds. We will see that evolution thanks to the transparency that the platform provides.
Gottfried, why not use Ripple's technology to do that?
Because, well, we'll have to see. I think what we are seeing, we had a long discussion about blockchain versus API. What we could see is the API technology, which is at the heart of what we do with GPI, is here today, and banks are able to integrate it. Blockchain, we think, is further out. We've run a large proof of concept with blockchain to several proof of concepts, I should say. One of them to put it inside the reconciliation between banks, Nostro Vostro, the account reconciliation between banks. We had 40 banks participate in that. It was the largest hyperledger implementation outside IBM, really big. 500 bilateral relationships on the blockchain, 500 individual blockchains being run. When we evaluated it with banks, they said, yeah, it works as a proof of concept, but it's not clear to us that it's that much better than what we have today, given the migration cost. And a lot of it is about the banks themselves who have to migrate and be interoperating with that new platform. We find that for them it's much easier to integrate with APIs and what we're now offering them with GPI than it is with blockchain. So that has been our experience so far, and our 10,000 banks worldwide play a big role in that one. They have to be ready for that technology.
Brad, do you want to respond as to why that might not be the case?
Well, I think the Swift model. We can talk about open APIs. We can talk about open networks,
Bigger
but
picture.
it isn't. I mean, Swift is it's a Swift-controlled API, and even I'm complimentary of what GPI has represented in terms of accelerating what has been a relatively slow process. GPI, I think, is a big step forward, but it's still there's a central database where you're querying a transaction status, and so that's a central operator. I think Gottfried said, and I agree with, decentralized systems, I think over time, as we've seen with things like TCP/IP, are likely to win, and I think that today is not what Swift is. And when we think about how to enable a transaction from a Barclays account to an M-Pesa wallet, mobile wallet, that when we think about an internet of value, it's not just about the banks, for sure. Yes, it's about regulated institutions, and we're certainly not trying to circumvent those things. But I think it's fundamentally kind of a different view of how the world may play out.
Yeah, maybe to that, I mean, a big part of the value proposition of Ripple, I think, is the cryptocurrency, the XRP. I think that's another one worthy of debate. There we do find that the banks are also, at least when they talk to us, they may tell you different things, they are hesitant to convert things into a cryptocurrency right now because of the volatility in the currencies, because of the fact that you don't have the deep liquidity that you have in, for example, the dollar as a clearing unit at the end of the day. So again, when we engage banks, we don't find them ready for a model where you convert it into crypto and then convert it back, and that has to do with many things: regulation, volatility, and all the things that are being debated around crypto. But that's a whole separate debate.
It's not really a separate debate, because I think there's two important things about this, and Gottfried mentioned this earlier. Swift today is a one-way messaging framework. It actually isn't a liquidity provider, right? It's Swift messaging partnered with bank liquidity. When we think about an internet of value, it's a mixture of two-way messaging frameworks, moving to real-time, a chatty protocol, if you will, coupled with real-time liquidity. And I hear people talk about volatility, and I feel like they're propagating misinformation. The volatility risk of fiat, volatility is just a mathematical calculation of time times volatility. If you hold fiat for, let's say, an average Swift transaction today is in the order of magnitude 2 days, that's about 180,000 seconds. An XRP transaction is 3 seconds. So if you take a low volatile asset times a long duration, fiat, or a high volatility asset versus a very, very short amount of time, it turns out mathematically there's less volatility risk in an XRP transaction than there is in a fiat transaction. The difference is you have market makers. When you do a Swift transaction, there's banks saying, there's a market maker saying, I'll lock in that rate. I'll take the volatility risk for the next 2 or 3 days. With XRP, you don't have to do that because it settles so quickly.
Gottfried, this gets to a little bit more of the skepticism over cryptocurrencies, which I know is separate from Ripple, but let's just get into digital assets for a second. Where do you stand on the role of digital assets in the future of the payment system, of the banking system more broadly?
I mean, first, most assets we have today are digital. Let's also say, I mean, if you hold stocks today, there are no more physical papers anymore. They're just registered. I mean, it's a funny anecdote. When we had Hurricane Sandy that flooded New York 5 years ago, One of the places that got flooded was DTCC. They have a big vault in the basement. Their address is Water Street, by the way, in Manhattan. That should have been a giveaway. The vault where all the US stocks, still the physical copies are held, was flooded by Hurricane Sandy, salt water, etc. They had a huge effort to recover all of those, but at the end of the day, it didn't matter because you no longer hold these physical things. It's all digital at the end of the day. A central securities depository is a register of who owns which assets. So by de facto, most assets you hold today, most money you hold with banks, etc., all of that is digital already. My issue with crypto assets is more that it is highly unregulated, and there is a reason we regulate things like securities and assets. There's three reasons. We found over the 5,000 years that the world has had money, we have found that money can lead to three big dangers. One is systemic risk, bank runs, and all of that. The second is it is quite easy to screw customers once value is around, etc. So you have to protect customers, often against these type of schemes. And the third thing is we have found that money is typically used for nefarious activities, and money is a good way to control tax evasion and all of those things. And that's why we regulate the financial industry. That's why we have central banks. That's why we have lenders of last resort. That's why we have the SEC on securities to make sure that securities offerings are true to value. They say what they do, etc. None of that exists in the crypto world, and I think that is
none of that exists in the crypto world.
I think that's an issue.
I don't know how we can say none of that exists in the crypto world. Every Ripple transaction is going through a regulated endpoint to a regulated endpoint. There are no transactions that are not KYC. There's no transactions that aren't monitored for AML. So, I mean, look, I actually think using digital assets, and I had the governor of a large central bank in Southeast Asia say to me, if customers were using XRapid, which is Ripple's XRP liquidity, it actually reduces systemic risk to a country, a small economy. Let me explain briefly what that means. Today, in order to, if you're a bank in fill-in-blank country, you pre-fund accounts around the world. If you're a small economy and you're pre-funding billions of whatever the local currency is into other accounts, you actually are losing control over those. And when there are currency runs, when there are challenges for local economies, that creates risk, increases the risk systemically. So if you didn't have to pre-fund, but this is an observation that I didn't make, this is an observation that a central banker made to me, that if all of the banks in this particular country used XRapid, the systemic risk would actually go down because they'd have more sovereign control over their own currency.
Exactly. The systemic risk would go down. You know, people are being taken advantage of by the banks, pre-funding them money. You know, you take your money out, the bank could like withdraw that check and you know, hold you accountable for it if that check was no good. So, you know, pre-funding is putting your customers at risk. I don't know what that guy Freed or the CEO of Swift is talking about, but banks are crooks. Bottom line, banks are crooks. Here's another video that I like when you're talking about new technology up and coming. And this one's kind of funny because the gentleman to the left is Gary Gensler. A little background on him. He was an MIT professor teaching about digital assets, teaching about Bitcoin, this new technology that's coming up. And he even talks about Ripple, and I'll make some videos on that in his classes and how Ripple's going to make payments instant, real-time, on-demand liquidity. But the thing I like about this video is this man right here that you're looking at, Tim Draper, he actually breaks down exactly the steps that happen anytime a new technology comes along, and what goes on while they're trying to emerge as a great new technology. It kind of explains how the people, the powers in the positions right now, how they try to fight the new technology that's coming in. And he talks about how they sue them, they put a lawsuit on them, and I think that's where we're at right now with Ripple. You know, Ripple's been in a lawsuit since 2020. The case is over. It's in the hands of Judge Torres right now. She's scheduled to make a decision any minute. It could be today, it could be tomorrow, it could be in 15 minutes for right now. I mean, it's over. There's been videos out saying that she has to review 1 million pages that were filed, but um, the case has been over for a while, so she could make her decision any minute. Um, and another good point to make right now is if anybody's interested in buying XRP, well, if you're in the United States, you're limited on places that you can buy it. Right now, Uphold, I think, is the best place that you can get it from right now. Um, I bought XRP back in the day from Coinbase. I've bought it from Binance. Um, I've transferred all my XRP over into a digital ledger. I still have some on Uphold. I trust Uphold a lot more than any of the other platforms, just because when Ripple had the lawsuit filed on them, Brian Armstrong, who's the CEO of Coinbase, well, he delisted. Well, he didn't really delist. He just halted XRP from being traded. He halted it from being bought or sold. He did come out and say, your XRP is on the platform. It can stay on the platform. You can transfer your XRP to another platform, but you just can't buy or sell, if that makes sense. And to me, I didn't really agree with that, because the lawsuit is still not over. There hasn't been a determination yet, and to me, it was kind of like you guys convicted XRP Ripple. You convicted the company. You already predetermined that they were guilty, and so you stopped trading. And I didn't think that was fair. The trial should be innocent until proven guilty. Well, Uphold continued to trade and is still buying and selling on their platform, and they follow that model. I think that's the American way. You're innocent until proven guilty. But anyway, so here I'll play this video for you that kind of breaks down the steps that the incumbents to be, the people that are in the power, the steps that they take, and actually where we're at with this technology, and we're at the end. So anybody's interested, go to Uphold. You can buy from there.
You mentioned Jamie Dimon, so let's bring it back to Jamie and JP Morgan. What do you think is going to be the thing that they will have to change the most or lose market share and somebody else is going to do better, faster, serve their clients better than JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs?
You can just hear the bankers panicking right now.
But what
just
what
feel the panic in their voices.
What's the line
but here's
of business that is most
well. Here's what always happens. The first thing that happens is they try to go, oh, it's nothing, and they did that. I mean, that's with every new industry, every new technology comes along. The powers that be, the incumbents, the status quo, all say it's nothing. Don't ignore the man behind the curtain. This is nothing. And then all of a sudden it's too big.
Oh, and also, with that being said, the incumbents to be, the people in the power, such as J.P. Morgan, they say he's the one in the power. He's the one saying, "Oh, ignore the man behind the curtain right now." But if you go to Google, and this wasn't coming out like 2 years ago, I couldn't find this anywhere. But if you go to Google right now and search and type in banks using XRP, it's gonna highlight and it's gonna say J.P. Morgan Chase, and that's Jamie Dimon. And so they're now coming out saying, that he's using it. That Chase Bank is using it, and it's just a matter of time until the switch is flipped, as they say, and all these big institutions start utilizing these digital assets and it's not far away. Because like I said, you couldn't find it. You could Google that information and it wouldn't tell you that Jamie Dimon, Chase Bank was using XRP, or it wasn't telling you any of that. But now you can find it.
Big to get in there, you know, they're going, oh my God, I got to face this thing. And then they all line up and they wrap their arms together and they say, we're not letting this happen. And then it keeps going. And then they say, okay, well, let's sue them. Or let's go get the government.
There's another thing they do. They adopt the technology. I think.
No, that's at the end.
They will adopt this technology.
No, this is the last thing they do. No,
Yeah, it's like
it's
the
after.
seven
It's
stages of
after.
grief, I
Right.
know.
It's after the press planting. They plant the press stories. They put out lawsuits. They create as much of a fuss as possible. They try to get their government friends involved. And then they go, oh God, this thing's happening.
Yeah. So there you go. It's coming.
To be our guide star.
Uphold.
Maybe
Excuse me. Uphold. Uphold is one of the best place where I know right now that you can get XRP. So anybody that's interested and wants to get XRP, time is of the essence. Because if you go to Google, it's saying that XRP is no longer going to be sold starting 6/13. So that's not very far. So if you're interested and you want to buy, hurry up. It's not going to last longer. And after this court case, after Judge Torres comes out on this court case, there's been rumors that XRP could go up to double digits right now. But, all right, y'all have a good one.